Of course, of course.
Is that Ron
Of
Daniels
course.
for the Reparations Commission? Is that Ron Daniels selling out our ancestors
Of
again?
course, of course.
Dr. Ron Daniels, number one sellout. Oh yeah, we talking to you. You's a sellout. You's a sellout. You don't speak for us. You were trying to get your money in the bill, but the U.S. Freedmen Project stopped that. We know you. We see who you are. You are a Pan-African scammer. You were trying to get your money in the reparations bill before the commission was even founded.
Plotting and planning, plotting and planning.
May the ancestors follow each and every one of you home for the disrespect that you have shown today. Our ancestors will get their lick back on you. I hope you enjoyed it because the ancestors will take revenge out on you. You're trying so hard to stop the progression that our ancestors are making right now with us, within us. May the ancestors follow each and every one of you home and get their lick back on you for the disrespect that you have shown today.
Since Deshaun in the last video brought up Dr. Ron Daniels, I thought I would explain why I can't stand him. So you guys just saw that was me calling him out at the Negro burial ground in Manhattan when Ghana tried to come out here and play in our face. Y'all already heard me say before, I don't like when people be playing in my face. So now I mentioned in the last video about his admission at the reparations hearing in Long Island. So I thought I would show you exactly what I was talking about. Let you hear for yourself.
And so now I want to give space to Commissioner Dr. Daniels to provide some comments and thoughts as we continue. So Dr. Daniels.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner. And I too want to join in commending all who came out on a Memorial Day weekend for this rich conversation, a central conversation. I have a series of random comments, actually, and the first one has to do with the fact that the last speaker, actually, I just wrote down my notes several minutes ago. The role of corporations is an area that and because I also serve on the subject matter experts and theme subcommittee for the commission, and we've been flushing out these themes. And I was just thinking about, I know we've covered gentrification in a number of areas, but I don't think we actually have explored. We've alluded to it, but I'm not sure we've had a specific hearing on the role of corporations, financial institutions, colleges and universities in New York involved in the slave trade. For example, it's just recently come out that Harvard University was directly involved in the enslavement process. So that does need to be excavated, and that's something I think we should certainly do. I would like to also point to an area of, I don't want to say, well, in some ways, it is an area of contention. There was a reference made earlier, particularly to whether or not Haitian Americans and other immigrants or immigrant communities should be awarded reparations. And we have heard a great deal from our foundational Black Americans who have come and presented their position. I think I'm a foundational Black American by definition. And I do appreciate, it seems, some evolution and development in the position, because reparations is not only for enslavement, it is for all of its legacies. That's why the bill says reparations for enslavement and its effects, if I recall the way the language reads in the document. The debate has been over, however, who those effects apply to. And I do recall in one of our earlier hearings, and I wanted to pull it out for that reason, is that early on when there were assaults that took place in New York, early on in the colonial era, that not only were there persons who had been enslaved, recently enslaved, but also there were immigrants from Jamaica and Haiti who were assaulted and who were victimized by that racially exclusionary attacks in that period. And so the point is that reparations is yes for those who are foundational and who were enslaved, but if one looks at the effects of enslavement, if you come to someone like Abner Louima, who was brutalized here in the city of New York, or Amadou Diallo, they're not quote unquote foundational Americans, but there are people who are in the city and because of the color of their skin and their heritage were brutalized. And people who were affected by redlining or other racially exclusionary policies are impacted. And so it's a kind of a false dichotomy to sort of have this debate between who and when, I mean, between the who. And so therefore, I really, really wanted to also commend the American Civil Liberties Union. The position that they outlined today was a comprehensive position. And they talked about the language being intentionally laid out so that nothing is left on the table. At one level, one would raise the question, well, why would we leave anything on the table in terms of the racially exclusionary policies that have affected we as Black people, foundational Americans, people of African descent, however you want to define it? To me, these are relatively synonymous terms. And so Shirley Chisholm, Harry Belafonte, Kwame Ture, the Shirley Chisholm in particular, and Harry Belafonte, who took up residency in the state of New York. The point is, I do not believe we should be denying any of these people or their sons and daughters reparations. So I just wanted to make that, to make note of that. But I also wanted to reference the American Civil Liberties Union because we also appreciate the fact that at almost every public hearing, you have come and you have contributed testimony that is different. I can recall the testimony on Staten Island that was presented. Almost every time the American Civil Liberties are doing serious study and are bringing different positions, different studied aspects. So that is not to say that others haven't, but certainly there are certain positions that have been well stated and well documented and well presented. We're looking for a diversity of ideas that can be presented, and the American Civil Liberties Union, in my opinion, has been very, very good at doing that. The final thing I'd like to say is there was reference made early on. Let me just say on the question of legality and whether or not which terms will or will not be accepted. First of all, we should not delude ourselves. The fact of the matter is the content and the composition of the judiciary matters, and who sits on the Supreme Court or the appellate division or the district division impacts how things are interpreted. So in what was in one era, the discriminatory effect or disparate impact, which said if it looked like a duck, walked like a duck, and sounded like a duck, it was a duck. Didn't matter about the intentionality of it. That was one court. Now we have a different court that has a different philosophy. And that philosophy is indeed correctly very adverse to anything that seems like and smacks of race. So the idea that we feel that we can somehow craft something that will not in some way look like it's racial is somewhat problematical. However, we do have a legal team, we have legal counsel, and there are a whole body of lawyers who in fact are dealing with an injury and harm based, let me say that again, an injury and harm based proposition in terms of how to present reparations. And the question is, will that survive? this current Supreme Court or the the current judiciary? We don't know. But what we know is that there is hostility towards anything that smacks of race, and however it's interpreted, we should not delude ourselves into feeling out that somehow this court will not, in fact, potentially be hostile. My final point is that there was a reference made to the federal legislation. I don't want people to think that somehow the federal legislation has not been a successful effort. It has been a very successful effort. In fact, under the leadership of the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee, with whom I had the privilege of working, and with the HR 40 Strategy Commission, we did have enough votes, both in the House and the Senate, under the Biden administration, to take it to actually pass the bill in the House. But given the nature of how the laws are set up, we would not have been able to get it done in the Senate. So the outlet is an executive order. But there's a huge amount of votes and co-sponsors that were amassed. That leadership is now being provided by Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts. And it's really a matter of waiting sort of a shift in the composition of the Congress before another effort will be made. But it is more likely to be done by executive order, and it will happen. HR 40 is going to become the law of the land, but it may take us a moment to get it. But there's been very successful organizing leading us right to the prefaces of getting it done. So I just wanted to offer those observations, Commissioner Hogue, just in terms of having heard the very outstanding testimony of diverse points of view, all of which I think are worthy of consideration and deliberation by this body.
So the very next week, they had another hearing. Yeah, back to back. That was a rough month for me and President Devine. Yeah, they had a back to back. So I decided, you know what I'm saying, I was going to make sure to address him and his nonsense in the next meeting. So here is my testimony there.
Last week, Dr. Ron Daniels of NCOBRA, IBW21 organizations that have yet to produce a single actionable plan for real reparations, decided to float the idea of changing or amending the Constitution to allow race-based law. The short-sightedness of this is unbelievable. If you open that door, it doesn't only open the door for Black people, it opens the door for white people to again make race-based law in their favor. That means the same political forces that Democrats claim to fear, yes, the ones that keep invoking Donald Trump to scare you with, would suddenly have power to pass their own race-based laws. That would undo the entire civil rights framework. How does someone claiming to be a reparations leader not see that? Maybe because these legacy organizations like NCOBRA, IBW21, December 12th, have been more successful in securing grants and cushy positions for themselves than securing reparations for freedmen. Right. Family, did you know that these same organizations tried to get grants from the commission written in the bill? Their scheme didn't go through because the U.S. Freedmen Project shut it down. I'm glad that Jumaane Williams brought up the set-asides the Republican president put in place for his base with no study and no commission. This is to all the Democrats in the United States. We now know, and we now have seen that if you wanted to grant reparations, you could. You just simply didn't. Jerica L. Richardson of the Urban League couldn't or wouldn't even state who the targeted group is. What lineage of children qualifies for these baby bonds? Because we've seen that movie before. Vague terms like underserved and urban get weaponized to divert resources away from foundational Black American freedmen and towards everyone else. And let's not forget the street team that you hired with commission funds. A member of the Harlem street team who could barely speak English had the unmitigated gall to tell a foundational Black American freedman to go back to Africa. This is the type of people that you hiring to reach us? Is this the process? If this is the process to address the badges and incidents of slavery, then start by respecting the people who inherited them. Start by naming the lineage. Start by grounding the remedy in constitutional status of freedmen, not in vague racial categories that can be hijacked by anyone with a clever rant writer.
I want the Foundational Black American Grant. I want to thank the Foundational Black American Grassroots for funding us to be here today.
Thank you,
And to my family in the audience,
Thank
I
you,
would like
Brooke,
to
for
actually
being here
participate,
today. We
and that would
appreciate
actually
you
like to
being here.
participate in
Next,
reaching
we
these
have
legislators.
Herman
Please
Francis.
send
Brooke, if you can
emails by
honor the
going to
mic, thank you. Brooke, turn the mic off.
breuck.com.
Turn the mic.
This is an interview I did with my big sis Kiesha and President Divine, where they go into, you know, his history and of who he is and what he's done and everything like that. So, you know. Sister Kiesha, who is Dr. Ron Daniels?
Dr. Ron Daniels is a Pan-Africanist who comes from First World Alliance, going back to the 80s, early 90s. He also took part in various documentaries as far as slavery is concerned and Black history is concerned. He was also a part of that whole 80s, early 90s Pan-Africanist fight here in the state of New York, because during that time we had a litany of racial injustices that were taking place in the city and in the state. So he was a part of that movement. However, he has always been a person who played the background and always looked for a leg up on what was happening. He has always been a person who has promoted his organization, which you all have mentioned already, taking trips back to the continent. All of this is, economically feasible for Ron Daniels and his association to be a part of this bill. He, along with other organizations who I find problematic as far as reparations is concerned, like December 12th movement, are also looking for their hand in the pie.
We gonna get to that too.
We had a meeting actually during the screening of the film about Fred Hampton, Judas and the Black Messiah, right? There was a screening done here in Brooklyn, and we were asked to be a part of a panel discussion about reparations. I was on the panel, Pan Africa was on the panel, a couple of other people, and two persons from December 12th movement. And immediately out the gate, they started talking about education programs and housing programs and all of this old kind of stuff. So I let them shoot their spiel. But when it was my turn to speak, I just let them know that this was unacceptable. Now, again, this was the screening of Judas and the Black Messiah. I don't know what year that was. But so they got a little bit upset because, I was shooting down their arguments. It got to the point where I had to let them know that this conversation was over and they had no standard to advocate for anybody. So that was that. But yeah, that was that. Ron Daniels, is a part of. This is what he's always been doing. Always looking out for himself.
Wow.
He's always been a part of this movement, especially here in New York, pushing for reparations, but reparations that aren't lineage-based, reparations that aren't involving any kind of monetary justices for the descendants, but always program-based.
Yep. Right. Because so that leads me perfect segue, and I feel like you set me up for that. You know what I mean? So my next question is, so the first draft of this bill, you mentioned, I've heard you mention before that there were some things in the bill It seemed like, people had their grubby little fingers trying to, get some of the money off the top, not even, scooping it, like sneaking it out. Or no, they was trying to put it in the bill. Now, I heard you mention that. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. So, and it kind of, I just want to finish my other thought from the last question before we segue to what Daniel is. So they held a Twitter space, Assembly Member Salages, Assembly Member Taylor Darling, who's no longer there, and Jam IUR, who is with the NBCI Trust. She was just on Van Lathan's, not to plug anybody else's podcast, she was just on another podcast speaking about how reparations should be for the entire diaspora. So this is still something that they're pushing even now, even with this Foundational Black American Renaissance. So we have to be aware of that. And so even then, back then, that was who they were and still doing that. And so they held a Twitter space where they talked about why the bill was a good. Now, this is after our conversation, right? And saying we had to see the table. They still pushed this bill that they knew was unconstitutional and that had said, oh, there we go. You got it. Segue to your question. Not only was it an unconstitutional bill, not only was it a race-based bill, not only was it reparations filtered through a Pan-Africanist lens, their ideology and what I call their religion, they had 3 Pan-African organizations baked into the crust. And so,
what you mean by that? What explain exactly what you mean by that.
So the first iteration of this reparations bill, which was authored by Charles Barron, shout out to Charles Barron. I don't agree with everything he's done, but he has done some good work to get shouted out for his community, for his people, for our people. And so that first iteration had NARC/ and COBRA written into the bill, IBW 21 written into the bill, and the December 12th movement written into the bill.
Who? December who?
The
See
December
that
movement.
Hold up! Sister Kiesha, what organization did you say Dr. Ron Daniels was a part of?
Come through, give receipts. I didn't even know. Go ahead.
Did you? What you said? What you said over there, Sister Kiesha? Okay, so he's a part of the December 12th. I distinctly remember you saying that just a few moments before Divine let us know. So now, isn't it? I know, like, I'm not like the brightest bulb in the shed, but don't you think it might be like a conflict of interest?
Come on.
To like have a person who would benefit from the bill on the commission to make recommendations for the money? Like I said, I'm not a genius. I'm not a political strategist, but I was just wondering if anybody thought that sounds funny. Anyone?
Not only did we think it sounded funny, we knew it was funny. And so we had no idea how to stop it at this time. Again, we just everyday Black Americans walking off the street figuring out that something needs to be wrong. But we're like, this has to violate some law, some ethics, something. We know that politics is corrupt, right? But it's like something has to be able to be done because this is egregious, right? And this is blatant.
But that was before the commission was even together. Yes,
right. This is the bill as it's moving through the legislature. It has these.
So you're telling me I'm please. So sorry.
No, go ahead.
So you're telling me that the politicians that signed off on a bill that was unconstitutional, that they were fully knowledgeable was unconstitutional. Not only was it unconstitutional, it had corruption
baked in the bill. And then they figured it out, at least the corruption part, because this is not the current bill that we've been fighting. Correct?
Right.
So they removed those entities from the bill, from the crust of the bill, as you were talking about earlier. So
yes and no. I'll say yes and no.
Okay. They took the organizations out, correct?
Yes and no. I'm gonna let you cook,
Okay.
but I wanna make the distinction because it's important.
All right. Well, but then so they recognized that was not a good idea. But then they put the person from the organization that they removed from the bill onto the commission. Make that make sense?
So here's the distinction I want to make, because you said you were in, I know you a lovely young, flower, right? In this whole process. And but you're giving them way too much credit. You said they figured it out. You said they removed them. That's not what happened. They figured out that we figured it out.
I like.
And then they were forced to remove it.
Okay.
Because our first major movement as an organization was to start a public-facing call to action. And this is where I first met a lot of the people that I still know and work with today that were on Twitter that we hadn't got a chance to meet personally or in person. And we took it to the family, used Twitter Space again, that just came out. So this is like in its early days. And we said, hey, family, in New York, outside of New York, look what they're trying to do. They have 3 organizations that if this bill passes, the Pan-Africans will have carte blanche over not only what the commission says and does, but any of the recommendations, meaning they get to control what reparations is, who reparations potentially go to, and what it looks like. Because the original bill called for a 11-person task force. And in the bill, it stated that each organization, again, NARC / and Cobra, I know there's 2 separate organizations, but I call them the same thing.
Right.
The IBW 21, which again is kind of the same thing, but that's another organization.
Right.
And then the December 12th movement. Each of those organizations would get 2 picks apiece. So we're not talking about experts. We're not talking about scholars. Some of them are scholars. I'm not going to take too much away from them, but we're not talking about experts in the reparatory justice field. We're talking about any people from their organization that they want to appoint. And so you have 3, each gets 2, easy math, 3 times 2 is 6. It's an 11-person commission. So 6 automatically gives them the majority, which is the quorum, to make whatever decision they make. So the other 5, whoever they was going to be, are irrelevant. Because all 6 of these are on one accord, because all 3 of those organizations are connected, if not the same organization, under different names. And
so how did you fight this? How did you overcome this?
The family. And this was my first introduction to, when people say power to the people, this was my introduction in real time, not reading it in a book, but real time. We got online, we made the petition, because it was just us, right? Again, we're the only organization fighting for this. Not only are the Pan-Africans united on this, because we're not going to leave them out, but they're not alone. All of our legacy organizations are right in step with them. So we talk about lockstep. We talk about the NAACP. We talk about Al Sharpton and the National Action Network. We talk about the Urban League. Right? All these organizations are right in line with the Pan-Africans for different reasons, maybe, but still the same. They are in lockstep fighting for race-based policies and this order of kickbacks and stuff like that. They're all complicit.
And to wrap up my parade of evidence on his Pan-African sellout ass, Here is just, a replay of President Devine talking about where the money is coming from that pays the lights for In Cobra and IB 21 and all of these organizations that he's a part of. Where are they getting all this cash? Where are they getting all this cash? Okay. And what do they got to do for the cash? Okay. We're gonna listen to President Devine so eloquently break this down. Dr. Ron Daniels is one of those Pan Africanists that we have been up against here in New York for our reparations claim. So, speaking about working with him on anything does not bolster your claim, because Dr. Ron Daniels believes, and this is a quote that he said in Long Island at a reparations hearing, that his mission is to change the Constitution so that race-based law is to be allowed. And the short sightedness of that is like what President Devine was talking about. We put in place for them not to be able to make race-based laws so that white people cannot make race-based laws against us. And so the short-sightedness of attempting to change the Constitution and switch that back would be sending us back and reversing all that we have accomplished during the civil rights movement. And so I just wanted to make that clear about Dr. Ron Daniels. He is an actual enemy of reparations for foundational Black Americans. And so I just want to make that clear for everyone because I cannot stand him, and everyone should know why.
I'm going to disagree by saying that he's an enemy, beloved. But I
Are you disagreeing with what he said in the reparations hearing in Long Island? Because I could bring up the tape.
Well, no, I remember the tape, but to say that he's an enemy for reparation for the foundation of Black Americans, I'm gonna, okay, like I said, that's not the interpretation that I've gotten. But we can respectfully disagree. I do appreciate that. I'm gonna mute myself real quick. I have to take this phone call. Black.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And how long? I question people who've been a part of something for a long time and hasn't net certain results. I think if anybody been at a job, let's say, and they were supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, I don't know. And to speak intelligently about whatever gains, but it doesn't seem like to me. It seems like it's time for fresh idea, new blood, new energy. And I do respect the shoulders by which the people that we stand on, the shoulders we stand on. And I think we should research. But I think when we research, we need to look at like, okay, well, they weren't successful, and we have to be honest about what has been achieved and what hasn't been achieved. And if someone comes to the table with something different and something new, I feel like sometimes the elders get in the way of new blood, new energy, because it maybe puts a little light on them for not achieving certain aims and goals.
Dr. Ron Daniels is also on record as saying at a hearing for reparations in Atlanta, in Fulton County, he said today's Afro immigrant is tomorrow's, well, he said Black immigrant, let me use his term. Today's Black immigrant is tomorrow's African American. That's highly problematic. Wow. In addition to Dr. Ron Daniels getting paid millions of dollars by the MacArthur Foundation through his organization IBW21 to not lobby for reparations. And so it is well within our right to question these individuals when the documentation comes.
Where's that information? That's a pretty strong thing, because I would love to have that as ammunition, because this is what I suspect. See, a lot of times when I'm speaking from what I suspect. But if you have that information, I can now say I know this because it's here.
Yes, and again, anybody can fact check anything I've said. It's verifiable. And so for that particular receipt that you're talking about, with nonprofits, they have to have public disclosures of where they get their money from. And so when you look into his organization, IBW21, you will see the MacArthur Foundation on there for upwards of a couple of $1 million that he then shared with the Narcan and Cobra. And the reasoning for the money is there as well, which is to not lobby for reparations. In addition to, and I'll say this and actually land here unless you ask me another question, is that he also, his organization and the Pan-African cabal that gets paid, in addition to some of the other newer organizations that advocate for race-based reparations, they've also gotten paid by another philanthropic organization called Liberation Ventures. that came out publicly and said they will not give funding to anyone advocating for lineage-based reparations. So now, if this is supposed to be an inclusive, truly Pan-African effort, why is it that they're picking and choosing on who they're going to fund? And again, understanding that the avenue that you're funding is unconstitutional for the reasons my sister Brooke pointed out, and all of those reasons are also verifiable as well.
And just for a little icing on top of the cake, this is Dr. Ron Daniels at the in London at the CARICOM meeting Tuesday, July 14th. Yes. So he's over there, rubbing elbows with the CARICOM folks. And so this is why it is so important that we call these people out, so that the rest of the world is aware of the fact that these people do not speak for us. Like, they don't speak for us. You could sit there, if the CARICOM people, because they were talking about how that he could give them guidance or help. If y'all want to have this Pan-African sellout on your side or on your team to help you out, then y'all take him, because we don't want him. He can't help us do nothing but shut the hell up. And so if that's who y'all want on y'all team and y'all want to hobnob with, then go at it, because he don't speak for us over here. We don't want him representing us. We don't want him representing us. Okay, let me not go off on the tangent and say things that could get me kicked off of YouTube. But we don't want him speaking for us. He is a sellout. He has proven himself to be a sellout. He is effectless because he doesn't affect change. He doesn't bring about change. In fact, President Devine has already revealed that he is taking money to make sure that there is no change, to make sure that we get no reparations. And so if that's what he's doing to us over there, why would you want to work with him over there? If that's what he's doing to us over here, why would you want to work with him over there? Unless all y'all are in on the grift of making sure that we don't get ours over here. Whatever, it doesn't matter, because we are going to deem your influence or sway absolutely positively useless. Okay. And so you can take as many planes and trips to wherever the hell you want, but the whole world will know that you don't speak for us and that we see you as a traitor, and you will never ever be our representative. Dr. Ron Daniels, may you rot in hell one day. Y'all was asking about my Juneteenth shirt that I made, okay? I got shirts for y'all. I got women's t-shirts and men's t-shirts. I worked hard. I found a really good supplier with really good quality t-shirts. So go to evenmelanin.com and pick you up a Juneteenth t-shirt today. They come in red and royal blue. Newly added navy blue. Keep watch, because more t-shirts will be coming over time, because I got a lot of ideas. You know what I mean? Pick up your t-shirt today by going to evenmelanin.com. Thank y'all so much for watching. Every time I see the views, I see, how many subscribers there are that actually take the time to come and listen to what I have to say. It shocks me. I'm just so thankful and humbled that you guys actually care about what I have to say. So please like, share, comment, subscribe. Even after you watch this video, leave a comment afterwards. I hear people say that helps in the algorithm. So, you know what I'm saying? I need help in the algorithm too. And hype it up, you know what I'm saying? If it gives you the option to hype it up, and become a member. I'm going to be doing documentary watch parties of content that has copyright claims, so I can't really, put it on YouTube. So become a member so we can watch those documentaries together, and we can just do some more learning. You know what I'm saying? I'm like Nellie Fuller.
I'm still learning, and I would love for you to still be learning with me. And thanks again. I love you all so much. Bye.